Go into your working folder and look for a document called Save to Print and go ahead and open it up. Now, we've talked about saving a document, okay? We've talked about saving it, and we're saving it to give to somebody else maybe, but let's talk about not just saving, but also to print. So we have a printer hooked up to our computer, which probably would be like a inkjet or maybe a laser. I don't know too many people that have a 4-color press hooked up to their computer, but you might. I want to print this thing out. Now remember, one of the things that's really important under the word effect, and that is the document raster effects that we talked about earlier. It's important to set that up correctly. The other thing is, I suppose, your artboard itself. Now, if we print this now the way it is, the artboard, if we have a piece of paper that matches that, the image is going to be there, the artboard's going to be on the sides, it's going to be white. If we go back up, let me show you something I didn't show you before. If we go into File, say for Web, and this time I'm actually going to bring it down to fit on the screen. Okay, that's that area that we saw as white. Clip to Artboard does two things, in a sense. If you have more than one artboard and you turn that off, you get all the artboards in this one single document. But if you only have one artboard, watch what happens. It will be more than glad to shrink fit it to the image itself. So if you're going out to the web or somewhere, PowerPoint, whatever, and you want the image to fit, makes sense. Let's get out of here. How do I do that here if I'm going to print? Well, if you go up to the word Object on the pull-down menu and go down to Artboards, one of your options is Fit to Artwork Bounds. And if you do that, well, there you go. So you don't have to worry about it. But the powers that be that want us to print this want us to print it on a particular size paper, 8.5 by 11. So let's do this. This button over here controls our artboard, but double-click on it. It's easier. You get the options. Now, in options, we have presets, and one of our presets would be, say, letter. In the United States, that's 8.5 by 11. Let's go ahead and click OK, and you will notice that the image is a whole lot bigger than the paper. So let's go ahead and pick up our selection tool, and let's go to a corner. I'm going to hold the Alt key, that's the Option key on a Mac, Alt key in Windows, and the Shift key, and I'm going to bring it down until I can fit it. Now, unless I want it to stretch, which I don't want it to do, I am going to have some lighter areas at the top and the bottom. Again, you could play around with that all day long. We could come over here and select it and come over here into Transform, and we could change it right here by the numbers if we wanted to get it exactly where you want it to be. You say, Andy, that's in millimeters. I need inches because I live in the United States, or I need centimeters or whatever. Well, what you can do here, number one, go into View and go down to Rulers and say Show Rulers. This would be just one way to do it. Then right-click on the ruler up here and change, say, in my case, to inches. So if I come back over here again and do Transform, I can now type in, for width, 8.5. And fit it exactly at least to the width. Now that assumes you're printing on a piece of paper that does a full bleed, but we've got that done. We're ready to print this thing out. If you go up to the word File on the pull-down menu and go down to Print, the first thing to notice is this area here. It's showing us what it's going to do if we do click the Print button, but we have a problem, and that is my printer and driver does not support full bleed, and it's going to cut it. We'll talk about how you might solve that in a minute. Up here, starting at the top, you have Print Presets if you have any. Let's say we do a pretty good job of manipulating this information, and we would like to use it again. Click this button up here and click and save it as a preset, and you won't have to redefine the wheel every time you want to come back. Down here, you got a different printer, choose it. How many copies do you want? Do you want to collate them, reverse the order? We don't have any artboards, but we could control what prints. Media size is defined by the driver, that's 8.5 by 11. However, we can change that if we want to. Do you want to change it into a different orientation? Down here, printing visible and printable, visible or everything, up to you. Placement of the image is where it is right now in the center. Now I can drag and move it this way, but you could use the numbers down here. Do you want to scale it? How about Fit to Page? Watch what happens. It will put it into the printable area for me with the click of a button. Now down here, you do have Page Setup and Setup. Let's save those for later. Come over to Marks and Bleeds. Well, basically, do you want trim marks and registrations and color bars, page information? that would be there probably for like a printer, like a print press. If not, I wouldn't really worry too much about those. Let's go into output. Now, we're not dealing with the CMYK, so we don't really have to worry about much going on here. In fact, most of this is grayed out anyway. For graphics, you have one thing that's important here, and that's flatness. See the quality to speed? If I move that over this way, it will print faster, but why? What's it doing? It's reducing the number of anchor points in the image. The more you go towards speed, now what does that mean? It will print faster, but the image itself may change because it doesn't have enough anchor points to support the shape. Up to you. I would leave that on quality unless you really have to. For color management, let Illustrator determine colors is usually what I use. On the printer profile, you have quite a few. I've been moving from sRGB into more ProPhoto. I really do like that, and it does really, in my opinion, help the colors match to print. So I'm going to use and change that to ProPhoto. Now, on rendering intent, you have perceptual, saturation, relative, and absolute. Absolute kind of really changes the colors to fit the gamut of the printer. The best one to use if you're not really sure is relative. If it doesn't work in a test print, I would go to perceptual next. Saturation is really for high saturation clip art, but I would start with relative colorimetric. I think that's the best one. And let's come to advanced. And there are a few things in here like for overprints and that we don't really have to worry about. And then you get a summary here. Go back to general. Now you have two more buttons down here. Page setup and setup. If you click page setup, it's going to warn you that you've already done it. Why do you want to go to the operating systems dialog box? In most cases, you don't need to, okay? So we'll say, well, return to print dialog. But let me show you this one on setup. It does the same thing, but let's go ahead and go into it. Well, it's your print dialog system for that printer based on your operating system. So if you're working in Windows right now, you're going to see something different. But you could override what we just did by coming into here and changing things. If you do, it will be glad to do it for you. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel because I like what's going on here. Then, of course, you can click print. Everything's hooked up the way it's supposed to be. You got a good print. What's done? Well, done means something like this. I made a lot of changes. I don't want to make this a preset, but I want to remember what I did to this image because I'm coming back in an hour to print it. If you click done, it will take you back to the image, and when you reopen print, all these settings will be there for you. Like anything else, when you're working in Illustrator, the bottom line is intent. Where is it going? What are you doing with it? That will determine how you set this up.